Hi.
Hello there, is that Dee?
Yeah, this is Dee. Is that Glossy?
Yeah, how you doing?
Not too bad, thank you.
Good, good. Can you hear okay?
Yep, I can hear you okay.
Smashing, and you're coming through loud and clear this side too. So, how are you today?
I'm very good, thank you.
That's brilliant. Good, good. I just wanted to really start, if we can, by talking about your break in Central America. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Hi, yeah, no problem. In terms of my break in Central America was really, I was taking time out because after I finished the closure of my label Map Records, which was from 2000 and 2008, I ran Map Records, an independent boutique label in partnership with my American business partner, and the label was based in North Carolina.
Wonderful.
On the closure of the label, what happened was that we really, in the end, it was very acrimonious, if I can put it that way kindly.
Yes, yeah, that sounds good to me.
and the lessons to be learnt from that was basically, I started the company up and got other people involved, and it's about what I tell young people today, how you've got to be very careful about who you choose to go into bed with, because the people that you think have got your back, turns out later on don't really have your back. In terms of, from then, I decided to take a break. I went to Panama.
Lovely.
Yeah, and Panama is a growing economy. Fantastic. I went to, I basically took it like a holiday and was based in Panama and did all the sightseeing like the Panama Canal and Casco Viejo and enjoying the culture.
Wonderful.
By the way, in terms of music-wise, they like a lot of reggae music. They like reggaeton and a lot of reggae. And so Panama was really like a break, and I enjoyed that. And I also spent quite a bit of time in Costa Rica.
Very nice.
And Costa Rica is like a 45-minute plane ride from Panama, so it's easy to get to. And then from Costa Rica, I went to Colombia and spent time in Cartagena, which is famous for Shakira is the ambassador.
Yes. Wow.
And I lived with the local people outside the city, and they had one of the signs of the place when I first came into there. It says, "Even Jesus doesn't walk in Gethsemane."
Wow. So it sounds like you had quite a trip, really, and it says in your biography that you came back refreshed, which is great. And I wanted to talk about the two new singles, if that's okay, on the Kejam project, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, no problem at all. The Kejam project is basically me back in the days of my youth dancing in clubs, and the Kejam project with the track Dystopia and Radiant. Dystopia is basically got its influences back in the 70s.
Definitely.
You can hear the bits of the Patrice Russians, the George Dukes, that sort of flavour.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
And the Radiant is more what I call the electric. The sidecar. If you're on a motorbike driving, and and Radiant is more like the Ramsey Lewis, the Spring Highs, and that sort of jam. It's basically getting back to dancing. It's basically, the whole project is about getting back to dancing, getting people back into not only dancing, but back into in love with jazz. Because at the moment we've got a lot of problems with jazz, especially in America, with a lot of labels not playing jazz music.
Definitely.
It's also back about getting people back to dancing to instrumentals. I was recently at Sold Up for the young man Jiggs' birthday.
Yes, yeah.
And there was a lot of instrumental records being thrown down and a lot of people dancing. And I think that's been one of the problems with R&B music, or whatever you like to classify it now, soul music, dance music, popular music, whatever it's called,
yes,
is that in the early days it was all about dancing. Then later on, it's about posing, and it was about posing and the slow jams, and that, in a way, the era of the slow jams really took away the fun of dancing, and that's why you've got the big house community now.
Absolutely.
Because the tracks are made for dancing, 117 beats upwards, and And so that's what I'm trying to do. It's all about trying to get people back to dancing. It's all about trying to do something different, because a lot of the projects I did before, like the Chanel My Life, which was a huge record for me, Metropolis projects and some of those, it was all about R&B flavors, but with also the alternative way of extending them to become dance records. And that's a philosophy I've always carried through with any project I do. Can I turn this record into a dance record?
Yeah, yeah.
And so therefore Dystopia is really, really all about, let's get back to dancing and let's get back to people enjoying themselves with a good feel factor. The brilliant thing about it is, as you know, jazz music is very, very difficult to create.
Yes.
So therefore, I have got a wonderful, wonderful co-producer and partner on this project, a guy called James Kohler.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, James and I have been friends for 20-odd years. We worked with projects before in the past. And so what we're trying to do is create a sound that's not only about jazz funk music, but try to keep it a British feel about
Absolutely.
the music. Some of the guest artists may not be British, because it's quite difficult. I'm not saying there isn't a lot of talented British artists out there, but it's quite difficult to get in somebody who you think can deliver what the vocals that you're requiring for the project.
Understood. Absolutely understood.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I wrote about Dystopia, and you can tell me what you think. But I wrote, I hear a very authentic jazz funk tune. Could have come out of Soul or similar record label back in the 70s, but with a modern feel. Love the scratch in it, and the keyboards are definitely driving.
That's very succinct. That's what we're talking about. Yep, you've written exactly what we're trying to do. We've tried to keep it simple, because even the way the keyboards are played, I've got James to play the keyboards.
Yes.
I've got him to play like a dance step, because a lot of people who produce music are very talented at producing music. James is very talented at producing music, but it's about guiding people about what dancers want.
Mm, yeah.
And I'm not a prolific musician. At no way, I can play the basic chords. But
Yes.
one thing I do have is history of music, because I got thousands of records from back in the day.
Yeah.
And also, I know what people want. I spent a lot of time observing what people want. And the mistake, I'm not saying it's everybody, but the mistake a lot of people make is that you're not making. I make music, yes, predominantly for myself, but also I want to make sure the girls are on the floor, because if the girls are not on the floor, no one's going to dance.
Well, this is it. I mean, I come from a circle of soul people that do dance, so I guess I'm a little bit biased, but definitely, with a tune like this on a jazz session in an afternoon, on an all-dayer, or a weekender, you're gonna feel the floor with Dystopia and and Radiant as well. Brilliant, just loving the music and loving the authentic feel. I mean, I wanted to talk to you. I'll ask you about Radiant, because the first thing that comes through is the bass line. It's just so cool and so back in the day, and I love that. But the rim snare on the drums, keyboard driven again, but it's got that authentic feel. I mean, what's behind that authentic sound, do you think?
Well, the authentic sound is because everything that James and I do is real. I mean, it's all built around the keyboards. That's what the whole Kejam thing is about, because Kejam really is Dee Majek, magic spelt backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so therefore it does work, and I thought, that's always going to be good. And if it's keys, so instead of pronouncing it as Kejam, we pronounce it as Kejam. And it's basically everything we do is we first start off with the bass lines, because as you know, some of the greatest records ever made were all surrounded around the bass. I mean, when I was working at Casablanca, Larry Blackman used to tell me, because he used to be a drummer.
Yes.
But everything used to be around the drum and the bass. So therefore, the first thing that we lay down all the time is really the melody lines and the bass lines, and then we work around the song, because it's the bass lines and the drums are the most important things in terms of getting people up dancing, and then you've got the keyboard bits that put all the flavors and everything on top of it, and then you build the track up.
Well, this is it. They're the rails of the track, so to speak.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And it said that you were sort of heading for a summer groove there. I definitely got that feel, but the percussion is also lovely. There's some lovely percussion work going on both tunes there, which give it that wonderful jazz funk feel, I think. And I just wanted to talk to you about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. And some of those ideas are James's ideas. I will never take credit for everything. It's a partnership. And I come up with, James has added some lovely flavours. Then what we do is we actually sit there and study the tracks. And the great thing about what we do is we're not the scientists of the, we're not the scientists of the music industry. You know how people will go back and change things. My view is let's do it the way the Sheep used to do it. Like Nile Rodgers and those guys, they'd go in the studio and have a little jam, and what came out, came out.
Well,
and so that's how we work. We work on the basis that, Dystopia took us 5 hours to do, Radiant took us 3 to 4 hours to make.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we go in there and say, this is, we got the ideas. These are the basic ideas. We discuss the ideas, and then we go straight onto the music. And it's all about authenticity and keeping it real.
Definitely, the authenticity and the realness is retained in those tunes. I mean, I go back to the authentic jazz funk days, I have to admit that. And, I'm feeling it in your tunes. It's definitely there. It's lovely.
Thank you. There's also, at the moment, various parties looking at remixing and putting the vocals on. So we're going to do a vocal version of Dystopia.
Wonderful.
So we've got Metropolis. I don't know if you've heard of Metropolis, the guy group from the 2005, 2006 times.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they are having a go at the moment. We've also extended it to Lamenka Cathy. She works with Teddy Riley. She's featured on a lot of the Blackstreet songs. She's also works with, apart from Teddy Riley, Timbaland, and also Pharrell, because they all come from the same camp together, grew up in the same camp together. And she's also a prolific writer for Sony, and she, songs like Pay My Dues, Anastasia she's written, also for... the guy's name just slipped my mind as I'm talking to you.
Always does.
She's done the Have Plenty soundtrack. Yeah. Also, she's done the Wild Wild West soundtrack. So she's very prolific. So she's at the moment doing that song as well. And also, I will mention it, but it may not happen. David Ruffin's Jr., son of the legendary David Ruffin. He's actually at the moment working on a version. So we might even do it like the way the old reggae feel, where you do like 3 different versions and put them all out together and see which one people like.
Sounds like an EP to me. Sounds fantastic.
That's right. That's the possibility.
Oh wow! Well, we're
not going to do anything with Radiant. Radiant is just going to be an instrumental. We might go back later and do a remix version of Radiant. There's certain parts I might like to change to be more dancey. That could be happen. But in terms of those 2 songs, that's the way they'll stay.
Wonderful. Well, they're both great tunes, and thank you so much for passing them over to us. We're certainly going to get involved with those and get those out to our listeners alongside the interview that we're having today. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. So, I mean, you've had a very extensive involvement in the music scene here in the UK, really, the urban music scene. I mean, over 4 decades of work from the age of 17. I mean, that's quite a feat. I mean, can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we can. I'm the quiet man, or one of the people who likes to keep a low radar, low profile within the music industry.
It didn't work in some ways, I will say. You're definitely in it, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I would say that. It's just that I'm back from the old school, if we may call it old school. Is that Gamble and Huff, and all the top producers like Tom Bell and all the producers of those times, All they were concerned about was we make great music.
Yeah.
They weren't interested in which is changed, some for the good, some for the bad, where we've seen a change where it's now the producers are the artists, and they now extending that further with the change of all digital media and everything, where they are now they're now the forefront and they're the brand.
Yes. Yeah.
In a way, I am my own brand, but back to the 40 years I've had is that I came into this business originally because I love music.
Wonderful.
I've always loved music, and even my father loved music because my father, because I originally come from Nigeria.
Yeah, I had read that. Yeah.
Yeah, I originally come from Nigeria, and my father used to sponsor all Nigerian bands. He also, where he grew up, he used to go to school with Fela Kuti.
Wow. Yeah.
And his Fela Kuti's father was his headmaster at the school. And my father when he grew up, he used to have a love of music. So he used to sponsor a lot of Nigerian bands. So he used to write songs in his name, and he used to support bands. So we used to have lots of bands at our house for parties and things that we used to watch when we were young. And even when I came over to England, I used to go to a lot of record shops. I even remember Richard Branson up on the second or third floor up in Tottenham Court Road selling second-hand albums.
Well, yeah, that's great memory. Well,
yeah, and so therefore I have a vast collection of records from back in the day. But I was lucky enough when I was 17 to meet Scott Bergstein, who was at that time the Casablanca manager.
Yes,
and he asked me a question that did I know all the top DJs in London? I know all of them. I didn't really, but it was good. Anyway, so the next thing that happened was that I wrote to him when he got back to America, and he said, okay, fine. And Casablanca didn't have a base over here at that time before they later joined with EMI. And he said, well, I will send you the records. You can tell me what you think of them, and you can promote which one you like. Wow.
What an opportunity.
So which is how I got involved with. I told him I didn't like the Donna Summer's "I Feel Love," maybe I was wrong. But I got involved with Cameos, the Parliaments, the Brooklyn Dreams, everything on Casablanca, the Randy Browns later on, Parliament. So it was really, really good. You know, it's also Casablanca's 40th anniversary this year.
Wow, yeah. It would be, wouldn't it? That's
brilliant. It's 40 years of when Casablanca first started this year.
That's brilliant. Well, we'll have to have a little look into that. There might be something we can do on a special or something like that on the show. That would be brilliant.
And from there, I got to know all the DJs. So therefore, when I was young, I was giving records. I was going to and sign records to give Chris Hill records, going to Robbie Vincent's house, going to Greg Edwards' house, also going to all the nightclubs like Gulliver's nightclub where all the stars used to be. I used to go to Gulliver's nightclub and be regularly hanging out with James Hamilton, Graham Cantor, Graham Gold was there, Owen Washington. I used to give records to Chris Brown, Froggy, Steve Walsh. There's many, Jeff Young, and there's many more.
All of these names, these are all massive DJ names. I mean, Robbie and Greg, for me, were my idols back in the day, and the music you used to give them was the music that I kind of, grew up musically on, if you know what I mean, and that's fantastic. So
and from there, I started branching out, and so I used to write to all these different labels, like I wrote to Bang Records, and they said, yep, here's Peebo Bryson, also Cotillion, here's Luther Vandross when he's and I did all that, and also South Soul I wrote to, and they sent me a load of the white labels. They sent me all the white labels, the first 10 white label copies of white label vinyls they had. So that's for the 10% by Double Exposure and Hit and Run, and also Beam Junction. I was doing stuff for them. That was Grace Jones on Beam Junction, Sorry, and a small New York label where she had Sorry and La Vie en Rose on there.
Wow. So many names and so much involvement. I mean, labels, Bang and South Soul, and these are the sort of You know, these are amazing labels, especially South Soul. I mean, that if you see anything at a second-hand record shop that's on the South Soul label, you always pull it out, you know, because you know it's going to be good, and you probably already got it. But you know,
I'm glad you said that, because one of the issues I have about nowadays, even my own child, you know, she's not little, but she's grown up now, but is that back when I was a young person getting started off in the music industry, I loved the music, so therefore they had physical shops, and with the physical shops, it meant that you could actually go into a store and explore. And like DJ Premier once said, you know, that the art of the music, as you know, for him, is going to a store and finding something, discovering something new. And you do that. You turn the record over and you said, "Oh, I see that Carla Benson's on here and such is on here. Oh, maybe I should listen to this. This is worth listening to." Or you'd see a producer that you and that's how I found records like Slay's first album. You know, the one with the Slave, with the Global World. That's how I found it, just by looking in a store and said, "Oh, I know that name. Let me listen to this." And you go into the booth and you play your record and you listen to it, and all that physical stuff has now been thrown away. You can't smell the vinyls anymore. You can't really smell a digital MP3 or something. But that's what's been taken away from young people. What's been taken away from them is the searching, the researching, and all. You know, people talk about skills. Well, that was a skill to find a great record.
Was, definitely. And just to be able to say, well, who played the bass on that? Who was playing the drums on that? You know,
exactly.
And, you know, you'd have a look on some of those albums and, you know, there would be 30, 40 musicians all named on the back, and, you know, just information that you don't get, some lovely artwork, to actually walk out the shop with something in your hand, you know, even
exactly.
That.
But it was the whole experience. Like, people talk about experiences. It's like, I remember I'd listen to Robbie Vincent's show, then I'd go down to, because I used to live near Tony Monson, because Tony Monson used to be down, because I grew up in Bromley, and so Tony Monson used to have his house in Orpington at that time, and I'd go down early in the morning as soon as the imports would come into Tony's house, and I'd go down there and be buying records from his house.
Wonderful. That's
wonderful. And then you'd go into London and finish up a Contempo, and you'd go to Contempo Records. There used to be in Hanway, they used to have the record Contempo label, and also John Abbey who used to be the owner of Blues and Soul at that time. He also owned Contempo Records, so you'd go and have a cup of tea with him upstairs, and you'd also be buying the records downstairs.
Lovely.
You know, that was an actual experience, and then you go home, listen to music, have a dance around the house, get ready to go out in the evening, and go clubbing.
Wonderful. I mean, we're literally a stone's throw from Bromley. Our studios are in Croydon, so we're sort of the next town along kind of thing. So I know Bromley very well. So
I know Croydon very well. My daughter just lives up the road.
Well, there you go. Well, we're actually in Shirley, so if you know Shirley well, then that's where we are. That's where the station is.
I used to go to school near there.
Did you? Can I ask what school you go to? Well, what school you went to? Sorry.
I used to go to a school called Hallsdown when I was a youngster.
Wow, there you go.
And that was along Halls Lane.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Near the swimming baths, yeah.
Wow, there you go. So it's not a million miles away for sure. That's absolutely brilliant. Oh, wow. So, shall we have a look at the 90s? Because in the 90s, you were owner of the independent label 7 Universal Records. Yeah,
7 Universal. I tried to create, well, this is my downfall, maybe. It's the rise and the falls. 7 Universal, the idea was I was trying to create a British sound. So I used to invest a lot of my own money, which I used to work for, on music. I used to have quite a good job because I used to be a project management consultant in the electricity industry. So therefore, I was investing a lot of the money I made back into the music, because here we go again, the love of the music. And
that's our station motto. It's all about the love of the music.
Yeah, so apart from buying records from all the stores, I used to help set up 7 Universal, and I had producers working for me. But there used to be a guy who used to be, he was my brother-in-law, my ex-brother-in-law. He used to play sometime for a guy called Terry Sebastian. He used to play drums for Maxi Priest and other people.
Lovely.
And so I got him working with me, and we tried to create a British sound and then also try to export it to America. And I had this wild fascination with, I need to go to America to sell this stuff and take these artists and trying to get this thing into America.
Yes, yeah.
And so on top of it, what I started doing was, way before a lot of people, was I used to do remixes, where I used to get people's vocals and actually remix the vocals. I used to do mixtapes and put the mixtapes. I used to do this thing called the Beats Researcher Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. One of the records that everybody liked was my Loose Ends to Busta Rhymes and Put Your Mouth Where Your Eyes Can See.
Wow, yeah, well.
Yeah, and I did a remix of that, and everybody seemed to like that version. And I actually got the version cleared to actually to press 1,000 copies, but I never did in the end. Maybe that was a big mistake. I don't know.
Nothing's stopping you now.
Yeah, and from there, I used to send all these mixtapes all the way to America, because I used to do them like storylines. It's the same way back in the day when I used to do mixtapes for my friends when they didn't have any CDs. I used to splice tapes, and I did it the same sort of way.
Yeah.
And I tried to push these for America. It got the first single was a cover version we did of A Little Bit of Love by New Edition.
Yeah.
And we did like a sort of take on that version, and we tried to. It did quite well, but the problem with, as you know, with British music is that the British shops don't support British music.
No. and there are not so many British shops anymore, are there?
No, and
music full stop on the high street anyway.
Yeah, and that's what's also not helped. The physical disappearance of shops has not really helped the scene either. And so we did quite a few albums. I was even doing, we did a rap, or did a, what's his name, G something, I forgot G-Force, I think his name was.
Yeah.
And we actually did a rap album with all the same way as Puffy and those people nowadays we're doing them with all samples of all the records we liked.
Wow.
And so we did, the Commodore Zoom, using the Commodore Zoom. What's the name? Who did Love's Gonna Get You? Not Melbourne Moore. Oh, I can see Sharon Red.
That's it. Yeah.
Sharon Red.
Yeah.
And Sharon Red, and we did. We used unusual samples as well and things like that. And from back in the day, and so we were actually doing that sort of stuff, and people were saying, "You're going to get these cleared." I said, "You've got to try."
Well, absolutely. Yeah.
But the good thing that came out of Seven Universal, apart from the label itself, didn't actually make me any money, but what came out of it was the opportunity to go to America with all these remixes.
Yeah.
And also I was able to, and I also knew Earl Blaze. Earl Blaze was a top producer. He does the Anti-Pop Consortium, which are huge. A lot of people don't know them here, but they're huge in the student circles of America and also across Europe. They do all the big festivals with all the big rock bands.
Yeah.
And Earl Blaze, who was part of the Anti-Pop Consortium, I used to collaborate with and work with, and he went to school with Rozelle from The Roots and also Pharoah Monch.
Wow. So
I got into that connection, and I took a chance and went with everything and went to live in New York for a while. Here's me traveling again. And I met lots of people because of my English voice. It does help. Like over here, you have the problem. In the UK, the problem you have here is that you can try and walk into any top producer and see if they'd help you. The answer would be no. In America, you talk to them, and if they think you're talking sense and also they like you, they'll give you a shot. And if you don't take the shot and you mess up, they say, well, we gave you the shot. You didn't take it. And that's the difference between America. You can, with a British accent, it was good because I walked in lots of parties. I met lots of people. I met Puffy. I met Busta Rhymes, Jay with the Damager, the guys from The Roots, because Earl Blaze's Anti-Pop wasn't common. I also went around with Tribal Quest and their last concert, Electric Ballroom in America. Also, I met will.i.am and Black Eyed Peas when they were actually doing decent music.
Wow. So many names. Brilliant.
Yeah, and I met lots and lots of people, which later helped me when I came back from America, because things didn't work out in America the way I wanted. Oh yeah, the other person I met in America was Nile Rodgers. Nile Rodgers was up on 40. He used to have a place on 41st Street, and Nile Rodgers invited me to come down, and he loved this remix I did of a Beverly Knight song using like sheet beats, and he said, and he was really interested in that. He said the pity was all these samples had to be cleared, otherwise he said he'd have taken all these CD compilations for his label.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the American experience was an experience which lost me loads of money. Loads of money could be a couple of houses worth of money. Wow. But I came back with no money, but I came back with love of music, and I also came back with loads of contacts.
Well, that's always good. You came back with something, and the love of music was something you took with you. So I guess that was wonderful, really, to get that experience. And so, I mean, after that, it was the urban street anthems tunes and involvement with the street sounds mogul Morgan Khan.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story about Morgan Khan. Okay. I first, oh yeah, talking about funny stories, I forgot to mention that I first met Lee from Imagination. Lee John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew him back from the days of Casablanca because he used to do like Dinah Ross showcases.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
We did a song back then, Dr. John, I've Got the Medicine, and presented it to Casablanca, but they didn't take it.
Right. Wow.
But in terms of Morgan, I first met Morgan when Morgan used to dance in clubs, and he was involved. He was also at EMI, and later he went off to Red Bus. And so I've known Morgan quite a long time. And so I was working on now bringing forward all my contacts in America became very useful, and they started sending me over music and saying, can you push this music for us over in the UK?
Yeah.
So I became like the go-to person for American artists, and I thought, well, this is brilliant. I don't have to spend my money anymore. They've got all these producers who've got their own studios who can actually do what I want them to do at no cost. And it's like a lawyer. If we win, we all get paid. If we don't, nobody gets paid. And so I built up Mad Connects, and Mad Connects, basically there's a young lady I met called Stacey in the States, and she finished up moving to Atlanta, and we basically built a network of over 40 cities of people who represented us, saying, if you've got any, from producers to lawyers, etc. If you've got any music by independent artists, give it to me, and I'll tell you whether it will work overseas, or if we tell you what will sell over there, will you do production for us with your artists, and we'll see and sell it overseas. And that's how basically we finished up getting all the artists for the Urban Street Anthems Volume 1. Some of the artists, like Metropolis, who were from back in the day, I finished up working with separately, and also Chanel back in the day from 2000. I first met her in 2000, and they actually recorded My Life she actually did the vocals in the bathroom.
Really?
In the bath. That is the bathroom take. You've got the Chanel record. No other version was ever made. That was it.
Brilliant. I mean, that's just something you just don't find out without asking, without people in the know. So that was recorded in the bathroom. Do you know, when I listen to that now, I'm gonna have a different angle on it. I really am.
Yeah, it was recorded. Yeah, it's like a little cupboard in the bathroom with a little mic in there. We've been recording that, and it's the same thing with. Also, I had the other project, the Derek Dixon project. And Derek Dixon had that huge hit that everybody wanted in time of Craig David, the Got to Get Her.
Yes.
And, he's a talent. I've got a couple of albums of his that never finished up hitting the street, but that's another story to be told, because the young man that Derek worked with, we got offered a deal by Relentless. You know how big Relentless were back in the day?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And the guy's telling me in the States, I don't want to go with Relentless. I'd rather do it myself on the streets of America.
Fair enough. Well, there you go. There's a choice. Oh, dear.
And so we did the Urban Street Anthems album, and that was quite well received by people over here. And before that, we were doing these things called Six for Spins, where we'd wrap up 6 tracks from American independent artists, put them press them onto vinyl for promotion purposes, and print a limited 1,000 copies. Nowadays you can't even do that. And we used to ship them in from America, and 1,000 copies would be sold within a week.
Wow, that's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't do that now.
No. Well, it's a shame because there's so much music that could be out there that isn't, because of the way things are today, and I'm sure we don't want to get sort of too tied down on that.
No.
But at the end of the day, I think it's just so restrictive. It's strangling the industry, I think, personally.
Yeah.
Definitely, without a doubt.
But the chance to take the Urban Street anthems further was limited because of the fact that when a couple of months later Morgan closed the company down.
Yes, yeah.
So therefore we couldn't go any further with that. So
yeah, I understand that, and but it's just your involvement in every decade is well noted down. We move on. You were owner and CEO of the highly successful American independent label MAP Records. Moving on from that, and can you tell us a little bit about MAP? Yeah,
MAP means Magic, Agrat, Patterson. Yes. Products. That's the original founders and partners of MAP. MAP Connects was really like an umbrella company between myself and Stacey Agrat, and she met a lawyer called Teresa Patterson in America, and she said she'd like to get involved in what we were doing, so we created this umbrella company, and therefore it was like a partnership between her TFP and our Mad Connects, and so we created this umbrella. The idea was really it's like a blueprint, an elevation of how to promote and produce and develop independent artists the old way.
Yes.
And the old Motown way, the old Philadelphia way, and get them heard overseas, and also how to build a network of producers across the whole of America. And we had top producers from Bad Boy, even guys have gone on to work with Jill Scott, and also Justin Timberlake and people like that. Also, people who've worked with Jermaine Dupri, lots and lots of different producers. The other thing that was basically we had a blueprint, and the blueprint was, the idea was, Puffy had this thing which he said from the beginning, which I always remembered when he was telling me in New York. He said, never have more than 6 artists, but he went against his principles. And so the idea was you never have more than 6 artists, and because you can, the lower the artist, especially if it's an independent label, you keep your costs down.
Yes, yeah.
But when you start expanding to more artists, that my partners at MAP decided to try and do, it was all against all the philosophies that I was trying to instill, because the first thing coming from an accounting background is you always keep your costs down to zero. Why, we had producers all producing stuff for free, or for percentages. So why do you want to then start having your own studio and spending money?
Understanding, yeah, definitely. I get that altogether. Yeah,
but we discovered lots of good artists. I mean, we had the Chanel, we had Chanel, who we did the album with. It took quite a while to do that because you don't have the same setup costs and that you can spend as the Metropolis album, The Voyage, which was interesting because the album, when it finished up coming out, didn't sound like what we were actually doing in the studio, because the producer at the end of the day mixed it incorrectly and then we had to redo it all over again with whatever tools we could find.
Wow. There's another story that we wouldn't have known about.
Yeah, because people say it's a brilliant album, but some of the production, well, that's the reason why, because when we actually got the right person in to do the mastering, when T.C. Cunningham, who works with a lot of people in the States, like he actually tried to unravel it all. Yes. And he was like unraveling loads and loads of tool files. So therefore, that's why even though the album came out, he did a very good job to get what he found, but he had to trawl through thousands of different files to try and get this thing sorted out for us.
Wow. So again, just stories and information that you only get by talking straight to yourself, to the artists.
And that's talking about the story about Chanel, My Life, was because the issue was the song blew up, but yet the sample wasn't cleared. And, I've got some, I do have some, one thing that a lot of things are missing in this industry is integrity. I will quite happily put out a song. I mean, a good example would be I could have made thousands of pounds out of all those remixes, the Beats Researcher Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3.
Yes.
I was pressing these up out of my own pocket, but I gave them away all away to the shops. I gave them away to DJs, and the shops were selling them for £5, £6, £7, £8, £10. I didn't make a penny out of it because I refused, and I refused to bootleg the songs, because to me it was a promotional thing.
Yes.
So therefore, and it's the same thing with the Chanel sample. I could have easily pressed them up. Well, somebody did try to bootleg it, and I could have easily pressed them up and actually sold them. But that, my principles were you can't do things like that. Maybe it's wrong principles, but my principles were can't do that. You have to get it cleared. So that's why it took so long.
Wow.
To get cleared, because in fact it went from 2000 to 2005 when I was approached by Jazz FM Head Candy, where Head Candy used to be based, with Jazz FM.
Yes.
And then they said they loved the song. It's one of the biggest songs on their radio. They like to license it, and the £18,000 of the licensing, 10 of them went to the Crusaders.
Well, I do remember the sort of time delay between the promos of that coming out and it actually, being played on commercial radio. I do remember there being a big time gap. I don't remember it being 5 years, but I mean, it could well have been. It's just I remember hearing the tune and then it disappearing and then it coming back later. So
yeah, what happened was that it was big in the clubs. And because I'd given all the DJs copies on CD, but the issue was the clearing. And then what happened when it was signed to Head Candy? Head Candy got taken over by Ministry of Sound.
Yeah.
And that delayed everything for about a year.
Wow.
So therefore, the song then was converted into the dance tune, which Seamus Hadji and Emmanuel did a fantastic job on it.
Yes, yeah, I have both, the original and that one, yeah.
Yeah, and also the Funzarelli mix, which has got over 1.5 billion, so 1.5 million, not billion, 1.5 million hits on YouTube.
Wonderful.
And also the, what's his name, Grant Nelson mix as well. And they did a fantastic job with it, but that record should have been a top 10 record.
Definitely.
But what let the record down was two things. The Ministry have a policy of putting everything on compilations first. And secondly, by the time they did get round to it, people got bored with it, got fed up with the song.
Shame.
And the initial interest, so therefore it finished up hitting top number 34, I think it's number 34 in the UK charts, and it did top 40 in Scandinavia, did top 40 in France. It also was licensed worldwide to everywhere it was licensed, and it's on over, I think at the moment, last time count was over 80 compilations.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, if that had gone out on a CD single from first off, it would have definitely been there, Yeah,
it'd have been massive.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, the comparison would be, I remember back in the day when the song I Can't Believe It's Over came out by the Funk Masters.
Yeah, Funk Masters,
done by Tony Williams, who used to be the reggae DJ on Radio London.
He
pressed those. He pressed those from the street. That did 100,000 copies.
Wow.
From the street.
Unbelievable. That's really good.
And that's what we're talking about. If you flash back to nowadays, or rewind to nowadays, you can't do that.
No. You see, that's the issue here nowadays, isn't it? Because artists put out even snippets of tunes on the internet, and somebody's turned it into a 4-minute version and is already bootlegging it out there, and it's
Exactly.
an awful thing, that artists put a lot of time, effort, work, bloodshed, sweat, tears, you name it, into producing this wonderful music, which people just have this attitude that they can just give it away, and it's not sustainable, and it can't remain.
It's true. Well, we are living in a society now. It doesn't matter for whatever type of thing we're talking about, films, whatever. We're living in a society now. Everybody expects something for free. They don't want to pay for it.
That's right.
And so therefore, that has now happened prolific in the music industry. I also blame the record labels, because the record labels never saw this coming, and especially the big ones never saw this coming.
That's
also,
right.
the other mistake the big record labels did, they actually encouraged all this, because back in the day when you never used to get vocal versions of anything or a cappellas,
Yeah.
when with the prominence of 12-inch disco music,
Yes.
they started giving away a cappellas, so therefore people could do mixes with. Then those a cappellas then became for anybody to do mixes with. And then later on it became, well, it doesn't matter how many people do remixes, because at the end of the day, we're still getting promotion.
Well,
but for
provided the money ends up back at the artist, then that's
well,
fine.
that's the problem. That's the problem. But for independent artists, it's given independent artists the freedom now, because of the way technology has moved, to actually make music cheaper.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the downsides of it all, you've got total responsibility for your music, but as soon as the record goes out on the street, it's out of your hands. So therefore, with my album, what I'm doing with the album is, I may bring out one more song before the album comes out, or a double A side before the album comes out, but I'm keeping everything for the album, because I will then physically sell the album directly to the Gary Dennis's, the Soul Brothers, the Mark Coddington, the First Experience of This World, and they can have those straight away, pre-sales. I will pre-sell it in Japan, because I've got contacts in there. I'll pre-sell it in Japan. Then I'll give it to the street, because otherwise I'm never going to make any money out of this.
Yeah, I fully understand. I was coming to the album actually in my next question, and to talk to you about, perhaps some dates for release and what your vision is with it and so on. So perhaps you could tell us a little more about the album, if that's okay,
the album.
Dee? That'd be lovely.
The album is going to be great. The album is going to be like back in the day. It's going to be mostly 8 or 9 tracks. It's not going to be more than 8 or 9 tracks. It's going to be like you're listening to back in the day, with instrumentals with hooks, and also full vocal versions. And the sort of flavors we're talking about is that the whole idea of the album is, would I buy it? Because if I wouldn't buy it, what's the point of bringing it out?
Understood.
I could easily have this objectivity and say, oh well, yeah, I'm going to, that it's my album, it's great. I'm not like that. The people who tell me anything's good are people like you and the actual people on the street. So, but what I'm trying to do is 9 tracks. 8 of those 9 tracks will definitely be up-tempo songs.
Sounds great.
And
Sounds
there'll
ideal.
be one ballad, or may put a bonus track on there, make it 2, which will be, I've got a track called Echo Lands, which is like a mystical void type vibe, which I haven't done anything with. But it'll be more like a ballad on the vein of, I've started working on the track anyway. It's on the ballad on the vein of Go Away Little Boy by Marlena Shaw.
Very nice, yeah.
Because nowadays nobody talks anymore. You don't hear people talking at the start of a record telling a story about their life, or like they used to do back in the day.
That's right.
So we're going to have a flavour like that, but most of it is going to be like pots of. If you put a pot together of stew stuff you're making up your stews or your chickens and everything. You said, well, here's a bit of Crusaders, here's a bit of Dexter Wansel, here's a bit of Patricia Russian, here's a bit of Roy Ayers, here's a bit of the Blackbirds, Donald Byrd, Rodney Franklin,
Sounds like
Lewis.
great soup to me.
Yeah, well, that's the sort of pop we're talking about. But it's more about this is going to be liked by people because it's liked by me, and that's what it's about. It's it's going to be the same sort of thing you're hearing now. It's not going to be anything different because otherwise, I've been known to throw away 8 versions of a song because I didn't think it was good enough. So.
Well, you have a very authentic ear. Your ear comes from great amounts of experience across 4 decades. So a good sound. There's no two ways about it. And what I've heard from the tracks we were talking about previously, Radiant and Dystopia, they are sounding that way. They, if that's a taster, then I can't wait to get the whole soup on the table.
Oh, you'll be one of the first people to get hold of it.
Wonderful.
An exclusive copy.
Thank you for that, Dee. That would be absolutely fantastic.
No problem at all, Glossy. No problem at all.
Wonderful. So the last thing, really, that I was going to ask you, Dee, if you wanted to tell our listeners about where to find you on social media, your websites, where to get information, where to get your music from, all of that kind of information, then please feel free to tell them all about it now.
Right, you can get my music, you can get the Kejam tracks, Dystopian Radiant, on any digital media. I've actually got worldwide distribution, so you can pick it up on Juno Records, you can pick it up on Juno, you can put it up on iTunes, you can pick it up on CD Baby. It's on HMV platforms. It's on Tesco platforms. So it's on Virgin platforms. You can pick it up anywhere. So it's on worldwide release.
Wonderful.
In virtually every territory. You can even get it in China at the moment. You can get it in China if you want. You can get it in Japan.
Excellent.
The other thing is also it's also now featured. Radiant. Talking about Radiant's now featured. It's out on Soul Lab on the 27th of December in France. It's also on a compilation at the moment called In Soul We Trust, Volume 1, which is now available across all your usual iTunes, Rhapsody, etc., and also on Beatports and Traxsource.
Wonderful. And
you can get hold of me on Facebook-wise. You can get hold of me, Kejam Majek. In terms of website, I don't remember the website's address because it's not your usual www.kejam.com one. It's one of the ones I just put up temporarily.
Well, I'm pretty sure that our producer will have the website, so that's no problem. We can make sure that gets distributed, not just vocally on the radio, but also via our social media to make sure people get there and get to. You can get hold of me. They can get hold of me on Twitter on Kejam1.
Wonderful.
That's brilliant. That's good.
Yeah. The last thing I'd like to say is that I thank you, Glossy, and the radio station DJs for supporting the music, because in this day, it's the love of support for music from independent for independent music, especially, is needed urgently and required by all the DJs, especially with national radio taking away all the infrastructure that helped soul artists and music, soul music or black music artists, whatever you like to call it, to push the records into the national charts. It's been dismantled and been taken away. You've seen all the DJs leaving Choice FM recently.
Yes.
That has all had a serious effect across the whole of the genres of the spectrum of soul music or black music. Look at reggae music, for example. You cannot. There's not the infrastructure, and that's the killing. Yes, technology has done a fantastic job in helping us, but also technology has been the curse, and also the change of music, which really has been afflicted by major record labels, and also major radio stations, where they only are interested in what's now.
Agreed.
And so therefore we've lost the tools that help you as an independent label to get out there. Luckily, I've been fortunate with with the Kejam project, with the Radiant and Dystopia, that the BBC regional radio picked it all up, and they, like BBC Manchester, BBC Oxford, BBC Solent, they picked the song up, and so therefore we've been quite lucky to go that route. But it's now becoming very, very difficult to take this music further than the underground, and so therefore you have to start looking at other markets.
We actively encourage independent artists to come to us, and we actively promote. We have an independent artist chart show, which we push out a new show every week, which is done by a DJ called Taxman. We absolutely love the promotion of new music from independent artists across the genres of soul, of jazz, of R&B, of reggae, all of those mobo genres that just get so missed out. And to have a station like Choice turn into Capital Extra is a crime.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know what it's going to bring. It's basically the destruction of the roots and the lifeline for all urban artists in this country. And also, what the I don't blame Patrick Berry for making profit of selling when he did sell Choice, but the problem is that now it's not only just a UK problem; it becomes an American problem, because the American record labels, are going to have problems, especially independent artists, are all going to have problems trying to sell their music in this country.
Well, they do. They talk to us about it. They do. And, they love the fact that we promote, and they love the fact that we play their tunes and so on, but they all have those same problems. The distribution is just, the infrastructure for that's just not there.
No. I've been told by a top producer in America that he's actually not bothering anymore with releasing his product. He's actually making videos.
Really?
He's actually gone into the video streaming, saying that's the future of content streaming. That's where the money's at, and the sync licensing and the compilations. But there's no money in actually for the physical music product itself. It's a waste of time.
Well, I have independent artists tell me that they kind of give their music away because they make their money out of gigs and performing live.
Well, but unfortunately, that is very, very good, because I mean we're actually looking at gigging next year and taking the product on the road, because you need to, and also for a more, because we're actually more going to be like a band, which is with playing, with real musicians actually playing, which also helps. Rather than doing also just the PA sort of things, which you would do as well.
Yes.
But the issue also is that if you do not make any money from the records, then how do you invest back in the music?
It's impossible, isn't it? It's a totally unsustainable situation that needs addressing. Really is. Because music needs it. I mean, everybody loves music. No matter what music they love, everybody loves some sort of music. And if it's not sustainable, where's that music going to come from?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we all go to work to earn, and many people are not greedy. They just want to earn a living and live well and live comfortably. And if you can't do that out of your music, and you're a musician, it's a sad thing. It's a crime.
It is the destruction of an industry that we're looking at here. People may say, yes, it's no longer, everything changes. The physical structure moves into a digital structure, and that everything changes. But what we're looking at here is that nowadays it's all about packaging. So therefore, but for a new artist coming, how does he package his stuff when he hasn't got his stuff from people already? He hasn't got the outlets to expose his music, to be able to get his music packaged into some deal.
Yeah, it's and it's holding back talent. There's immense talent out there that's literally unheard.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree at all. Only the other thing I forgot to mention was that I've got a song on the new Natasha Watts album that's coming next year.
Natasha, what a lovely lady.
Yes, very, very lovely lady. Yeah, I've got a song on her album with me and Ross. We go under the production name Remo.
Lovely.
And so I've been working with Natasha. We've done a couple of songs, and there's one of them definitely going to make the album for the next year, and she's going to reciprocate and being on this project, hopefully.
Wonderful. That's great. We're very much supporting her latest single as well, which only came out about 10 days ago.
Yeah, that's right, Change.
Yeah, Change. Yeah, that's a
very
beautiful
good
single. Yeah, great. So lovely. I think that's absolutely great. Dee, I've taken up way over an hour of your time.
Thank you.
I've loved every minute of it. It's been a wonderful having a chat with you. It has been great.
I hope you've got enough there to use.
Well, there's certainly enough there for a feature, but I'm wondering if maybe we ought to do a special feature. See, the same thing, when I spoke to Kenny Wellington of Beggar & Co., this sort of thing happened, and we got chatting, and I ended up doing a 3.5 hour special. So, fantastic, Dee. Just thank you for your time. Have
no problem at all.
Wonderful day. And
thank you very much.
It's been absolutely great speaking to you, and let's not leave it too long before we chat again.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you, Glossy.
Yeah, you take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful day. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.